Welcome back to the Welsh History Podcast, episode number 51, 1 year later. Hi, everyone. I just want to start by saying this is not going to be your typical Welsh History Podcast. There actually will be very little discussion of the history of Wales here, but I wanted to kind of talk to you all for a little bit about where we're at, where we're going, where we're headed, and kind of some of the changes that are coming with our little podcast, and some important ones, to be honest with you. So it has been a year since I started this podcast. I can't say I didn't think it would last this long, but I will say that we are much more in depth than I thought we would be, at least initially. I think I sort of foresaw us getting past about possibly even 1300 by now, and we're still somewhere lost in the middle of the 7th century. So that's been surprising. I hope you've been enjoying this podcast. It's been a real fun, exciting, terrifying thing to do, and the support that you guys are giving me constantly has been so appreciated. I can't tell you how much it's meant to me to have that, how much it's meant for me to know that you guys like what we're doing. As I'm trying to study a lot of various different things and trying to come to an understanding about where we are in Welsh history, I can honestly say that for me, it is a very unique sort of circumstance, and I think it will be really cool to sort of come to grips with everything we're doing. We have created, I think, an interesting community. It's so interesting for me to kind of look around and see how many different people are listening, where you guys are listening from, how diverse it is. It surprises me in some ways because I never expected it to be this diverse. And in some ways, that's amazing. I don't even know where to begin with how amazed I am about this, because it's just such a... I'm taken aback by some of the opportunities, some of the things that have happened, and how much you have been able to assist me with this. And I just wanted to thank everybody and once again say how pleased I am, how things have gone. You know, right off the start of this, when we got going early on, and it was kind of under the encouragement of others, I really had no concept of what this podcast would be and how it would define itself. I wasn't sure if I was going to have to, but going to need to do more interviews, to have more people in with more experience than I have, because to be honest, a lot of this is a lot of me just learning and reading and trying to understand and use my skills that I developed at university and in work to try and come up with an entertaining and interesting podcast. And I think that has been really good for me, because without that learning curve, I think I would have struggled a little bit more to make it both interesting and to actually learn from it. Because the one thing that's coming about here is I'm learning as much as anybody listening to this is. And I know often I repeat the same sort of agenda over and over again as I talk about stuff, and I get very much caught up into the, you can't believe everything you hear, da-da-da. But it is important for me to always put that back, because at the end of the day, what I'm giving you is a presentation based on what I'm reading, and it's based on limited sources. And so I can't go in depth beyond certain degrees. And so you're getting a wide swath of Welsh history. You're not getting a narrow viewpoint. And that is even saying, with the amount of sources currently that are very limited, there are still lots of perspectives and lots of ideas that go into this. So it's just, I really am happy that you guys are enjoying this. And I hope that as we move forward, you'll continue to find this podcast useful for you, and that it will continue to offer you something that's entertaining and of value. Because I think it's important for all of us to get something out of this, both the listener and me as a podcaster. And the one thing I wanted to do more of eventually here is bring in people, experts in the field, to talk, because certainly as we get closer and closer to much more detailed history, uh, it's going to come down to there may be experts in a certain field which would be much better versed in talking about this, and maybe bringing them in to this discussion would be useful. And it's something I've wanted to do, but I haven't had the time or the ability to do yet. So, why am I dedicating an entire episode to this conversation and thinking, well, when I could do that in a recording or in a stream or in a Facebook post or any of this kind of thing? It's because I wanted to talk to you about something I'm looking at doing, and I'm bringing forward for your review and hopefully for your consideration, because I think it will help me to offer up the best podcast I can, and I'll explain why. So I've set up a Patreon for the Welsh History Podcast at different tiers for different people, whoever you want, and contributions, of course, are only if you would like to. It is not mandatory, and obviously I'm not going to put this podcast on a paywall. This podcast will remain free as long as I have anything to do with it, so don't get concerned about that. I'm not planning on doing anything like that, but what I am looking at is I would like to be able to have more material to work from, and one of the biggest hindrances for me is trying to buy books, material that helps get access to articles, all of these kind of things that continue to help diverge the topic and conversation. And especially when you get into Welsh history, because the sources are predominantly limited to Welsh sources, it's fairly expensive coming from here. So I would like to be able to allow you guys to have a better view than just the few sources I'm reading. And the best way to do that is to have access to those sources. But one of the things I would like to do is ask for your support to do that. That is a big agenda of this, is to create an opportunity for me to get the source material to continue to expand and continue to talk from an educated point of view, and not talking, from a couple of sources. And it gives me an ability to say, well, this person said this person said that. And I can do that right now to some degree. But once we get into much greater source material, like once we get to about 1000 AD and onward, there's going to be a lot more sources, a lot more perspectives that I could pull from. Number two, I would love to upgrade some of the equipment I have and make the podcast sound that much better, maybe add some things to it. This is kind of why I'm looking at this. So largely that's the perspective I'm going under. It's not about trying to make this into a full-time job or making it, a financial boon. It's about trying to make as good of a podcast as I can, offering up something that I can still offer you guys for free and not get burned out because I just don't have the material to keep going forward. Continue to develop contacts and with you all and get you involved so that this little podcast means something to you as much as it does to me. So I hope you'll consider it. You can find out about it by going to patreon.com/Welsh History. That's the website. Pledges start at $2 a month, which that's American, obviously, so that's not too much. They go to $5, $10, $20, $15, $20, and $50 a month, which I'm just setting those there so you have sort of different tiers to choose from. Each one of these tiers has different things assigned to them. Everybody, no matter who contributes and how much, will get recognition from me in some way, form, or fashion, whether that's a personal email to you or something along those lines, just recognizing your contribution. Anybody $5 and up will definitely get a shout out on the podcast. So if you want to hear your name in lights, anybody over the $10 tier, I will be giving access to the source lists I'm using, as well as some fun things for you to have. And it continues to go up from there. On the $15 tier, you can even suggest maybe topics to cover, specifically on a Patreon exclusive show. So if there's a particular topic you're itching to hear about, or you want me to address, or you want me to go back and talk about something that we talked about on the podcast and go into further detail, that would be the way to do it. And it would benefit everybody in our little Patreon would get an opportunity to listen to it. So you'd all get a chance to hear any of the exclusive content there, no matter what tier you pay to. At the $20 tier, I'll even send you exclusive things from our store, as well as a love spoon. Found a source for that. So there's a little bit of Welsh merchandise. And then at the $50 and top tier, I'll get a shirt for you from our Welsh history stuff of your choosing that we can send you, as well as you're contributing. The higher up you're contributing, obviously you get all the ones below. So every tier below you get as well. So something to take a look at. As well, the first goal is to get to $100 a month. At $100 a month, I can buy the books I need to get this podcast into even better circumstance, have me reading more material, which is more work for me, but it's work I enjoy, so that's a good thing. And it makes sure that I'm not too reliant on one source. When there are multiple perspectives and multiple ways of looking at something, it's always nice to have that. The other thing it does, it also diversifies out what I'm looking at. Because, I mean, one of the things that comes about that we can talk about is I've seen and unfortunately I don't remember the author, but there is a book on the Welsh Crusades, which I think would be absolutely fascinating to talk about. There's books on, like one of the books I do have is a book on the Welsh military from about 655 till the modern, or not modern era, to the end of Welsh independence. There are books on, of course, Owain Glyndwr ad infinitum. There are specific books on the later kings of Gwynedd, and so there's a lot of cool books, but eventually, it comes down to the fact that I can't spend as much money as I would like on it all. So that's the first goal, is to get to a point where that isn't such a question. The next major goal for us is if we get to 250, is I will then contribute to the equipment and content. One of the goals of this is to continue to expand out our Patreon exclusive content, but as well help the podcast have additional content. There are some ideas I've had that I just don't have time to get into right now that I think would be helped in this circumstance. If I could do that, I could add a few people to that. The other one, if we get to the $500 tier, once a month I will open the floor for you guys, the listeners, to answer questions on the show. In other words, you can send me in questions and I'll answer them once a month. If you have a particular story that you want me to follow, a particular character in history you want me to follow, that would be a great point for me to do that. And that is something I will do on the main show so anybody can hear it. But that would be the goal for that, is to get you guys in as the producers, so to speak. And then finally, the last goal, and this is the ultimate goal I have at the moment, is the $1,000 goal. And we'll add different things to the tiers and things as we go. What I've done right now is just sort of an initial phase. But if we get enough interest, if there's enough people that are willing to jump on board with this, what I will do is I will continue to add to the tiers and add to what they get, so that there's more for you guys to get. It's not just a one-time thing. If you're continually donating and helping me move this forward, I want to continue to offer you something for that. It isn't just about the one-time payment or the one-time offer, because then what's the reason for you to continue other than to gain access to some of the exclusive content, I guess. So I wanted to continue to encourage that. And one of the things, my ultimate goal with this, and I'm hoping people are excited about this, because I'm kind of excited about this, is I want to get to a point, and the final goal I'm after is to be able to hire someone to translate the entire podcast into Welsh, so that I can offer it to people in the native language, something I can't do because I just don't speak Welsh. I've tried to learn Welsh. I'm terrible at it, I'll be honest with you. You can tell by the way I mangle words. And it would be wonderful to offer a native speaker an opportunity to translate the podcast and offer it so that people who are Welsh speaking can listen to it and enjoy it in that language as well as in English, which obviously I will continue to offer it in. So that's my ultimate goal. And I hope that excites you. I hope that gets you interested in doing this. But keep in mind, I mean, like I said, I will still do this regardless if we make $4 a month. But I would love your help to continue to build this thing, to make it even better. And if we can make it even better, I will be absolutely over the moon, because that will mean that I am producing the best thing I can, and then I'm getting the ability to make it even more entertaining and exciting for all of you, the people who listen to this show every week. Your willingness to listen to this program has been the driving force for me to continue to push forward. I really didn't know when I started kind of what the interest level would be, and it gets me all a little emotional. And I really feel how big of a responsibility this is because of that, and your support and your emails and messages saying how you appreciate the show mean the world to me, and I am so grateful to you for that, because honestly, every time I think, oh, do I want to do this? Should I do this? Do I want to do this? That support and that love that you guys send continues to push me onward, continues to encourage me, continues to make me want to do this podcast for you. So thank you so much. I'm sorry that this is basically an advertisement for the Patreon, but it's also an advertisement for me to let you know that after a year of doing this, I feel just as honored, just as driven to continue to tell this story as I was when I started in May of 2016 to do this and to sit down and write the first script and kind of come up with the first ideas on what I wanted to talk about and how far back I wanted to talk about and kind of where we were and where we're going. And I get excited every time I learn something in this process, and I have learned tons because I didn't know half of the stuff I know now. And so while I have an understanding from my interest on some things, I certainly didn't know a lot of this information. So that's been tremendous. Your questions have been tremendous because they engage me and make me think. And in some cases, I know the answer off the top of my head. Other times I have to go back and read and look into it and come back to you with the answers that I found. And I'm so grateful that you guys ask these questions, because I think it drives me to continue to look into things and continue to look at what this podcast is to offer and how I can help. Now, I'm not going to always have the answer, and if I don't, I'll tell you, and I'm more than willing to send you to someone who might have it. So keep that in mind as well. But regardless, I'm very grateful that you all are listening, and I hope you'll continue to listen into the next year as we are continuing to go forward. And I'm so excited to continue to be on this journey with you guys, and hopefully I can honor those people that I'm talking about and these issues that we're talking about in a way that you feel like I am telling you the best to my ability. And thank you once again for checking us out, for being here. Really, your willingness to listen, your willingness to share, your willingness to give me that rating and review matters as much as anything else. So know that I appreciate you listening, and thank you once again. And if you want to talk to me in any form or fashion, you can reach me at the Welsh History Podcast at gmail.com, at Welsh History Pod on Twitter. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Welsh History Podcast, and you can message me there. And you can also check out my personal Twitter account at JohnDMP. And John is spelled Jon, for those of you that might be wondering. I always say John and I never think about the fact that people might think H. And you can find everything that my group does at distractionsmedia.com. I would encourage you to check stuff out. We have such a wide variety of podcast group things that we do, from nerd culture to the history podcast that I'm doing now to role play content. It's a wide variety, and it's a lot of fun, and it's tremendously interesting stuff for me and for all of my fellow contributors. So I hope you'll check that out too. And until next time, everyone, where we get talking a little bit more about the South this time, we'll see you all later. Bye.
Edge of the Abyss Creations is a proud sponsor of the Welsh History Podcast, your one-stop shop for unique jewelry, paintings, and other crafty creations. You can find us at facebook.com/edgeoftheabyss1.
This has been a Distractions Media production. For more info, you can check out everything we do at distractionsmedia.com.